Okay, 30 minutes. That's like half an hour. So I'm gonna try to continue discussing, continue preaching. I know people hate preachers. They hate people who are like preaching at them, and they said something they didn't like, and or they said it too loud, right? It's not even the thing they said. It's just the way they said it. It's just that's it. It's the way they said it. But um, as a final like note, final words. Famous last words. Um, so okay, so I'm just gonna preface this. Okay, for example, you know, um, you know, uh, like okay, even if my diet were 100% vegetarian, like from the beginning, like I'm 100% vegetarian. I don't eat meat of any kind. And I didn't say anything, and I was just there for like the exact purpose to become a family doctor. Right, that was my life. That's my purpose. It was predestined by whatever the aliens, God, whatever you will. Right. Which is, there's evidence that suggests that. Unfortunately, there's more evidence than not that suggests that there's some kind of divine intervention where, not even divine intervention, just these people have this advantage that you don't have, that that they're using you as a stepping stone to take what was actually yours, and I'm just saying it truthfully in these videos. And it's not obvious. It's not obvious because these things happen, and the person just they do it, or there's some higher power that enables this to occur. And people like my parents, who are just, some of them, like especially my mom, who's just so naive, who didn't see these things, and I mean, the vacations are one thing. I mean, helping. I mean, if she works as a researcher in downtown Toronto, that's her job, right? That's like okay, like the culture of Toronto. There was no culture to begin with, right? There was never a definitive Canadian identity, because that's what literally Trudeau said is, oh yeah, Canada is a postmodern nation that has no identity. Okay, so be it, right? We're not here to judge. We're not here to judge people's identities. They want to change genders. They want to hell change ethnicities. Both, so be it, right? It's all said and done, right? But where I think the conversation would change is when I'm talking about because thing is, no, these things don't matter, right? These things sort of don't really matter, right? I mean, other than the fact that you're a vegetarian, it doesn't really matter that it doesn't really matter. You're a vegetarian, as long as you're a vegetarian, and you almost have to be like the wind, right? It's like you almost don't exist. You're like transparent. You're a vegetarian. You say nothing, and you just do the job that was asked of you to be a plumber. Before a pipe even breaks, you already know that's going to happen, right? This is the kind of intuition and the kind of level of thinking you have to have if you want to be successful in any trade, in anything, in any good, solid line of work, right? I don't know how my mom became a researcher with her naiveness. I just, of course, like, I'm no longer at my full capacity. My nerves have been expended. I have heart pain at night. I don't know where it comes from, right? Now, obviously, the vegetarian diet, granted, it's one thing, right? I would have been a vegetarian sooner. I would have never touched a piece of meat had I known that it could have been anyone or anything, right? It could have been a worm, for all we know. And I already mentioned, Mustache Man got that right? You don't need to go far in history to figure that part out. Whether it was the juice boxes or not, we don't know, right? Either, right? I'm not looking for them. I'm not looking to hunt down every, juice box and blame them. Okay, somebody put this sign down. I don't know if it was the wind or something, but, everyone's looking for someone to blame, right? Maybe they're not blaming themselves. They're gonna complain about someone, and they're gonna blame them, and they're gonna whatever you will, right? And again, like, I'm 1 in 20,000 people, right? I'm not here to I already know this plumbing degree is just a cover up. I'm just trying to blend in with the rest of the population, right? I don't want to stand out. I don't want people to really know me. I just wanted to get a degree just to um, have some housing for myself for the time being, and then to move to Windsor and live in a tent. I didn't have a future. I don't actually plan on fixing any pipes or building any homes, any of that bullshit. That's not something I'm gonna be doing, right? Because like I said, like this country betrayed me. It betrayed many other people, and that's the difference. The difference is right there. Those little details, those little things that were said, those little things that were done, those vacations, those moments that my mom forced me out of the car. All these things are fucking issues that are forever. It's forever in stone. The mental and physical damage was done. I can barely communicate properly because of these problems. The food. Barely able, because it's not respecting my rights, right? My mom wants to live a lifestyle where she's traveling the world and saying whatever she wants and doing whatever she wants. She can go do that, but she's not entitled to safety. Nobody's entitled to safety, right? Especially when it comes to a person who's looking for a conflict, looking for who's responsible, who kidnapped their child so that you could eat, right? BioShock Infinite, that's what happened, right? That's why, like, because the interpretation to the real world is that in real life, because in real life, in the high school, if the person, if you ended up like even in a high school or any literal setting in the modern world, in any city, in anything, the end result ends up being that you get just like the I hate dogs guy says, you get worthless inbred mutants, right? And inbred as in like inbred meaning you inbreed like in your one population, right? But what you end up getting is just like you end up getting these like you end up getting these like people who are of these like nationalities and the races all intermix, and they end up as this person, and the whole thing falls apart to a level that you can't even comprehend. You can't even deal with it. And if people unified based on using the reptilian side of their brains, or who use the the humorous side of their brain, like the comedic side of their brain, and they unify based off these things, and they like actually make a connection based on that, and that's all that the human connection is based upon. It's not based upon any like solid foundation, old ethnic, old religious, old these ties, because we already know like these people, like these old men getting accused of being pedophiles, and again, like maybe human nature is predatory, right? A lot of these pedophiles happen to be white. A lot of the people collecting CP happen to be white. I'm admitting it. I'm being honest on these videos. They happen to be a certain demographic, old white men. Now I don't know why, and it's very interesting, because it's like if there was only white people, is this what they would be doing? They'd be abusing the young, and obviously there's trauma. And I mentioned, I mentioned that if you were to even forestall like Columbus's voyage by 100, 200 years, right? Like, we have to use the mentality of the people of the past, right? That their mentality, their way of thinking, their way of thinking, their circumstances were entirely different, right? We judge people from the past from a modern perspective. It's just like Andrew Scheer said, the politician Andrew Scheer. He said that we sit at heights that people of the past would only dream of, and we judge the past with this sort of extreme view. So we know that the past is not right, but we also know the present is not that much right either. So it's a whole different ballpark of problems, and there's no solution, right? There's no solution. There's no definitive solution, and everyone's pointing the finger, and arguments erupt, and it's not even worth it to engage, right? Because I don't take conclusions like the movies Ants or Ant Bully or the other one. They're not accurate at all. And who they made these movies and why they push these movies down people's throats, just like the 1950s movies, I don't know, right? I don't understand that.